Welcome back. Well, the SGX Nifty is slightly higher. Let's see if the market respects higher level or starts to recede. We'll find out. But let's discuss some numbers then. Good earnings from Mphasis as profit after tax was aided by higher other income and lower taxes. Nitin Rakesh, Executive Director and CEO of Mphasis, is now joining us. Nitin, good morning. Thanks a lot for joining us. You know what, in your previous avatar, I would have asked you what's the market looking like, but of course you moved on now. So just tell us what's the post-COVID world looking like. I mean, of course, we're still not at the end of it, but in terms of IT services, how are things looking? Has there been a significant change in terms of client spending?
Thanks, Anuj. Thanks for having me. I think what this current crisis has done really is accelerate a few trends that were already underway, but this has kind of given a really big boost to some of those digitization type trends. So almost, think about it, right? 15th of March, virtually every bank, almost everywhere in the world, was forced to become a virtual bank, with the only way to interact with consumers and customers is actually contactless digital interface. So I think that has really accelerated a lot of the trends. I'm just giving you the banking example, but that's kind of been true for retail. For almost every industry. E-commerce has taken a big boost. Telemedicine, education has gone completely online. So I think what this has really done is shown a big light on the impact that digital technology can have on businesses, today. What that also means is that there is a significant reprioritization of budgets because what was expected to be delivered in 3 to 5 years is now expected to be delivered in a few months, for some of these businesses because it's a matter of survival. So I think the very short term is clearly going through this reset, reprioritization, cost rationalization, and at the same time, of course, many sectors hurting, for pure shutdown reasons. In the medium to long term, I think this really bodes well for companies like ours, especially the ones that had made investments, in helping clients go digital. So I think it's a very interesting dichotomy right now. We have seen, contrary to the current times.
Nitin, I want to know what can be the near-term impact as well. That is what investors will want to know as they take decisions with their money. And what we saw yesterday was Gartner saying that there will be an 8% decline in 2020 of orders for IT companies. So how are you looking at the next 2-3 quarters?
So, Lata, I think we gave some guidance yesterday on the fact that the very immediate terms, obviously, we're still coming out of the shutdown. It's not fully over. We started getting out of the shutdown in India just last week. I think there is definitely some disruption to operations that has to go back to whatever the new normal seems like. But at the very least, I think we expect a few some percentage of our staff to be back in the office because there are critical operations. We require equipment, labs, and so on and so forth. And keep in mind, the whole cybersecurity issue is one as well. So I think the immediate short term is clearly going to be a little bit challenged. Then the recovery will depend on each individual company's trajectory and business profile. I think the fact that we, at least in our business, had a fairly strong book as of March quarter close. The fact that we've continued to close deals in April while working remotely, and aided by the fact that we've also seen a pretty significant increase in a large deal pipeline. Going back to the trend of digital transformation getting accelerated, I think it's really a question of how we can continue to accelerate our recovery path as well. So I think we do expect to go back to growth, probably towards later Q2, definitely second half of the year. And we did guide for above market growth, and if Gartner's expectation is decline in global IT spend, our expectation is that spend will actually get reallocated and reprioritized. So if you play in the right segments, you still have a lot of business to go after.
Was my next question. What are the segment contributions for Mphasis, and where are you seeing growth?
I think, for us, given the portfolio of our business, we are almost 60+% in BFSI. That hasn't really been the biggest impacted sector here. The biggest impacted sectors are the ones impacted by travel shutdowns, right? So you think hospitality, you have airlines, and the like. So that is a very small exposure for us, less than 1% exposure to actually airlines. So I think by virtue of our portfolio and by virtue of our service orientation, I think we definitely feel that we're better placed. And as I said, based on the conversations and just the current state of the pipeline, despite not being able to meet customers, not being able to have our people go in and actually originate these deals, we definitely see significant appetite for acceleration of these projects. Now, having said that, I think we still need to kind of get out of this current phase of going back to whatever the new normal looks like. But I think that's the transition period we're in right now.
Okay, Nitin, good morning. So the deal momentum has been really strong in the fourth quarter, and I know these are very uncertain times, but can you give us any sense, any rough guidance on how the pipeline is going to look over the next few quarters?
Yeah, I think pipeline guidance is pretty, for us, it's pretty encouraging at this point in time. As I mentioned, right, not only did we have, this is the second time we closed more than 200 million of net new TCV in a quarter. And the highest in 6 quarters for us. So I think that definitely gives us a little bit of tailwind to be able to onboard and fulfill this demand as we see some other dislocation from a reprioritization perspective. Secondly, I think given just the traction we've seen in April from a deal closure perspective and the current state of the pipeline, I think we are on track for a pretty, a robust deal signings. Will that be adequate enough to make up for whatever reprioritization and cost issues we are seeing or the disruption from the short-term trends? I think is a question of how quickly we're able to ramp up those projects, because keep in mind we're still operating 90+% remote, and so are our clients, especially in the US. Given that our exposure is fairly heavy to banking, at least the New York region is still 100% remote. So I think it's really a question of how quickly we can execute on that ramp up. But health of the pipeline is actually fairly strong.
Okay, that's good to hear, Nitin, Rakesh. All the very best for the coming year. It is challenging, but let's hope that greater digitization will help infotech companies. Thanks a lot for joining us. Okay, with that, we have to invite our next guest. Joining us now is Nischal Maheshwari, the CEO, Institutional Equities and Advisory.